Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So let me start today's video by helping you understand what's happening in the US market. It has very important repercussions on the Indian market. So let's start the story from Friday or last Friday. This is where the US index or Nasdaq composite was. This is one of the indices in the US. And if I just zoom in, you will see this big red candle, right? So in a single day, the Nasdaq in the US, it corrected by roughly 2.5%. Okay, this is a fairly big fall on index in the US. Now, natural question comes that aisa kya ho gaya in the US that the index fell so much. So there are multiple reasons for it, and all of those reasons are now being sort of thrown into the market. But a report came out, and the report basically said this, and this was a report by S&P Global, and the important or the most important paragraph there is this. Okay, so this is the paragraph, right? And इसमें दुनिया भर की बातें लिखी हुई हैं that okay, high inflation हो जाएगा, growth rate is slow, दुनिया भर की problems, right? So I mean that is there, and just stop the video for a second and just read through this important paragraph. Basically, it talks about 4 or 5 key points that I'll explain on this video. Now comes natural questions. So two questions come. One, that should you invest in the US, because US in the last 10 odd years has done really well. In fact, after 2010, the US market has outperformed the Indian market. So natural question comes कि अच्छा चलो गिरावट आ जाती है. If the market corrects in the US, then maybe we should invest more in the US. Second question comes that okay, what will be the impact on India? Should I withdraw money out of India and invest in the US? Now I'll not dangle the carrot in front of you and say that what pura video dekho all that. I'll give you short answer, and if you want to listen to the long answer, you can listen to that also. Of course, I'll encourage you to do that because that would allow you to understand things fundamentally. But the short answer is this, that is the US market better than the Indian market? According to my analysis, yes. Am I moving money to the US market? The short answer is yes. Am I putting all my money in the US market? Absolutely not. Still around 40-50% of my money in the stocks will remain in the Indian market. Rest 40-50% will be in the US. And maybe remainder 10-15% मैं देखूंगा in which market do I have to put, UAE market, some other international market. But at this point, it's very important to be extremely diversified because there is higher risk on the world. I have no interest in trying to prove that okay, country X, country Y better, nothing. I'm just helping you understand the investor's perspective. So please listen to this entire video with a slightly more investor-oriented lens. So I'll make my case and let's begin. And the first key thing is that you need to understand why right now is a good time to start learning about the US markets, and the story starts here. Okay, so let me show you how the US market typically behaves, especially Nasdaq, right? So मैं आपको 2-3 phases दिखाता हूँ Nasdaq के, the recent ones. The first interesting phase was this September 18 वाला phase. इसमें you will see कि अच्छा मार्केट बुल रन में था, उसके बाद गिरा. When it fell, it corrected by 25%. Okay, and the bull run had started from somewhere here around 2016. Okay, यहाँ से यहाँ तक की bull run थी, almost 100% run up, 25% fall. This was phase 1. Now phase 2 started somewhere here 2019 से, just pre-COVID. Again the market rose by 63-64%, and when it corrected, it must have corrected by 40-50%. So around 33%, not 40-50%, around 33% it corrected. Then it went back up. Okay, this is third phase that I'm speaking about. So it went back up by 143% and corrected by how much? So this region I had already marked. I'll mark it again. So approximately 37%. Now this region is very important. If you do not have much positions in the US market, this phase or the fourth phase is very, very important for you to understand what is happening. So right now we are in kind of a bull run, okay, in the US market, right? Why am I saying it? Because we have already run up how much, right, from the bottom. So यहाँ से यहाँ तक का उठाएंगे. So typically we'll find that we have made 100% run up in the US markets, Nasdaq. Okay, this is a tech focused index. There are other tech focused index. For example, there is an index called as SOXX, which is a semiconductor index. There is a broad technology index called as XLK. So there are a wide range of indices, right? In fact, if you guys are interested, I am building a portfolio. Exact मैं क्या खरीद रहा हूँ, क्या बेच रहा हूँ, all that stuff is explained on that portfolio. I am a registered investment advisor in UAE. Okay, so in case you want access to that portfolio, you can sign up for my NRI community in the description and comment box. I'm putting up the link. Everything that I'm buying, selling, that is there. That's just one part of the equation. But why am I doing it? How am I building a portfolio? What is position sizing? How am I hedging it? इसके around classes भी होती हैं. So every month I come give updates on my portfolio and help you understand things holistically. So you have confidence. Okay. So right now I've only built 20% of my US portfolio. This year I have already said that I'll be building roughly $1 million portfolio. So 200,000 I have invested. I am looking for better time to buy, right? When I buy it, I'll definitely let you know. Okay. So coming back, right? So see, right now the situation is that US market is here, right? It has just corrected a little bit. And the important point to note is, and मैं थोड़ा सा clear कर देता हूँ, then I'll explain. So this is the channel where we are in, right? So this is the bull run channel. Okay. The bull run is very much intact as of now, but there is a very high probability now that this channel is going to become bearish. Okay. So होता ही हो, right? I mean, Nasdaq, I've shown you 3-4 phases, right? That where when it corrects really good by like 20 odd %. Okay. Now, how much is the expected fall? So the immediate fall that I am expecting on the market or very short term is around 3.5, 4%. So this will be a good point to add some positions. Then, wait a little bit, let the market consolidate, see whether this channel is being followed or not, or when will the channel breakdown will happen. I don't know when exactly it will happen, but it might very well happen कि ऐसे ऊपर जाए, right? Then it comes down, it consolidates here or something like this. Or second scenario can play out that it just breaks here itself, right? Then it finds like a new channel somewhere here, right? It trades for a few months, right? Then it goes up. But the macroeconomic situation is such that I feel that we are very close to a point where even the US markets might correct. So let me explain you systematically why is that the case. And there are 3-4 central points. Again, from this article, you can figure it out and I'll show you some data facts around it. So on this bit, or to understand the macro, you need to understand 4 points, right? The first key thing is that right now in the US, a recent announcement was made, or rather an indication was given by their central bank that, hey boss, we are not going to cut the interest rates. The reason is that we feel that the inflation is high in the economy and we don't want people to suffer due to inflation. So the central bank has indicated that it is not going to do rate cut at a fast rate. Now, what this has done is that this has number one angered Trump. Okay, why? Because low interest rate means that there is more business activity. Interest rate meaning that the rate at which businesses borrow, the rate at which you borrow to buy a house or whatever, that gets cut. So since that is not getting cut, the natural response comes for the president is, boss, okay, economy mein growth kaise hogi? So he's not very happy about it, but the central bank has maintained its stand that they are not going to cut the interest rate. Now, what does this mean? A side effect of this would be that INR is likely to depreciate more compared to US dollar. Why does this happen? Well, there is something called as interest rate parity, right? So for example, typically what happens is that if other countries are not cutting their interest rate and India is cutting their interest rate, then typically the buying power of INR will fall, right? And therefore the currency depreciates, so to say. This is what macroeconomics teaches us, okay? So anyways, coming back to the topic that interest rate cuts are unlikely, right? Or like interest rate cuts might be there, but they might not be fast enough. What people were anticipating, even I was anticipating that interest rate this year will get cut fast. But unfortunately, that's not happening because US is still deciding to fight inflation war more, okay? So that's their decision, right? I mean, I of course cannot sort of make a guesstimate when will this happen. But right now, this is the situation. And this is one of the reasons why the market got spooked a little bit. I'm shooting this video on Sunday, February 23rd. Monday ko, this video will be released. So I don't know what the market circumstances, but I am assuming that there will be a downfall, right? Both in the Indian market and the US market because of this one major piece of news. Second key point is that just generally, right, for the last 3-4 months, Trump trade policies or tariff policies have been very unpredictable. Why उन्होंने Canada के झापड़ लगा दिया, right? Mexico ठास दिया, right? And all that. So basically it's like गुंडागर्दी going on, right? And even India has been hit, right? And for example, EVs, when it comes to EV, we used to have like a import duty of around 115%. We have cut it down to 15%. So some companies like Tesla might benefit. This does not mean that you go and buy Tesla stock. Basically, what it means is that the trade policies are very uncertain. Dusri countries bhi nahi chhodegi. They will also retaliate in some way. How exactly, we don't know. But what this does is that this creates a lot of uncertainty, right? So this is the key point, okay? Third key thing is that growth rate. So generally, the growth rate is also slowing down, okay? Slowing down. The last quarter numbers were very good for the US economy. In fact, people were estimating that US will grow very slowly, but the growth rate was there. Okay, so or the growth rate was decent enough. But now, as per this report, the growth rate is unlikely to be really high. That again is spooking investor. Then natural question comes ki boss, ye bhi nahi ho raha, ye bhi nahi ho raha, ye bhi nahi ho raha, right? Then why even bother with US? Okay, the reason is very, very simple. That's from a long term perspective, US market is solid gold. Okay. Now, why is that? There is one central argument that I'll make, that if you explore areas or industries which will actually add to GDP growth of not India or the US, but generally of the world, Those countries will be robotics, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, these type of companies which are publicly listed and where investors trust. So this last two sentences that I spoke, that publicly listed and investors trust, is very critical, because कई बार क्या होता है, if for example if a private company is there, right, and it is doing like revolutionary work, but you have no chance to invest in it, then that P multiplication cannot happen, right? So this is the case with Chinese company. The Chinese companies might be really good. For example, BYD, right, which is an electric vehicle manufacturer, it's kicking like Elon Musk's ass, okay? But what is happening, right? I mean, it's not like, it's very easy for investors to go and buy like BYD stock, okay? So that's a problem. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you add the fact that, okay, there are going to be handful of companies, like maybe let's say 50 companies, if we try to identify, which are adding to the world GDP, right, which will accelerate the productivity in the world, robotics, AI ke through, semiconductors ke through, at least 30 of them, or 30 bhi chodo, even 15 of them come from US. They are investable companies. You and I can put money there. Okay, now comes natural question. How can we invest money? So again, I'm putting a link in the description comment box. There's a link by Vested. If you are one of my community members or viewers, you'll get special discounts. You can open up your account on Vested. They will allow you to buy US stocks safely. They have a partnership with HDFC Bank, so you can remit money easily. So it is well regulated and it's easy to invest via them. So you can check out the links in the description comment box. Okay, so again, coming back, I feel that, okay, this is where long-term growth is going to come from. So therefore, we have to bother with the US, because in India, if I ask you a very genuine question that, okay, where do you think growth is going to come from? Honestly, except for domestic consumption, I don't know like where growth is going to come from. It's not very clear what exactly are we exporting. Yes, we have a huge population that they will continue to consume more. Maybe they'll find like good jobs, etc., and they will consume a lot more. So domestic consumption wali companies, Zomato, Swiggy, all these companies are good, but like, I mean, from a world GDP contribution perspective, I don't know like where exactly like innovation is coming from. That clarity is not there. So therefore, like, I mean, I have made a call that I'll be shifting almost 50-60% of my portfolio outside India, right? And majorly I'll be putting up in the US stocks. So this is point two, that okay, fine, abhi हाल फिलहाल इतनी अच्छी situation नहीं लग रही है when it comes to growth rate, but this is not a secular decline in growth rate, okay? Because this long-term growth rate, everyone understands that, okay, all this GDP improvement in the world on investable, publicly listed, safer companies will come from the US market itself. So it kind of makes sense to be exposed to US stocks. Okay, so then comes that, okay, what is a great entry time for US stocks, right? And how we can think about it. So see, sabse pehle to, you take a look at like M7 or a handful of M7 companies. So let's take a look at Amazon, for example, right? So this is Amazon. And यहाँ पे आप देखोगे तो again what you will see is that, see, these stocks have started to correct a little bit. For example, here is Amazon, and from its peak it has corrected by roughly 11%. Okay, so this is not a very small fall. Okay, and also please notice that, okay, this was the bull run, right? So यहाँ से bull run start हुई थी Amazon के stock पे, it gave 177% run up. Okay, so it has given like very strong run up and अब थोड़ा बहुत correct हुआ है. Okay, so it makes a lot of sense to buy in a down cycle. Now I'm not saying कि इसकी down cycle start हो गई है, right? It might very well fall till here, I don't know. Okay, अब वो कैसे होता है, उसका design कैसे बनता है, how exactly to judge the technicals, all that. So I will take you on that journey with me. But just because a stock has corrected by 10% does not mean it has become undervalued now. Okay, because these stocks, M7 stocks, Nasdaq, it has very high volatility. Okay, volatility. And if you have cash right now, right, that's the best thing that you could have done, right, on your portfolio, because of time aa raha hai when these companies might become discounted and you'll get an opportunity to buy. So let me just show it to you. So here are Apple ka stock, right? And Apple mein bhi aise hi hota, right? For example, the stock corrected by roughly 20% and since then it has bounced back. Okay, so आप ये देख सकते हो कि यहाँ से यहाँ तक गिरा था, right? This was the fall of Apple and since then it has bounced back up. So इस तरीके के करेक्शन आते रहते हैं, right? When it comes to M7 stocks also in the US, right? आप same देख सकते हो even in the case of Google, etc. So therefore, understanding technicals, understanding what good companies are, understanding the right indices, ETFs to buy, that's going to be the key. More importantly, understanding how to build position, that is absolutely critical in the US stocks. Now, what do I mean by building position? जैसे for example, मैं आपको कुछ stocks दिखाता हूँ, जैसे AMD. Okay, so AMD का stock right now, right? AMD. So this is AMD. AMD का stock from its peak has corrected by roughly 50%. Okay, so 52% से correct हो चुका है, right? Now, if you feel that, okay, this is a fundamentally good buy on a 5-6 year basis, then it's a great time to aggregate the stock now. Okay, but if you feel otherwise, then रुक जाओ. Okay, Amazon, for example, I just showed you that Amazon has corrected by 12-13% from its peak. It's not like crazy correction that has happened in line of the run up that Amazon had given. So there it makes sense to be a little bit patient. If you feel that, you know what, boss, I will just buy some index. For example, semiconductor index, I would say that it is available at a decent margin, right? So for example, here a semiconductor index, number one, it has corrected by 15-16%. Okay. Number two, there has already been a 1 year time correction on semiconductor index. Okay. So compared to like Amazon, compared to like Google, compared to like Apple, something like semiconductor index is still available at somewhat of a reasonable price, I would say. Okay. अब ऐसा तो नहीं कि semiconductor index नहीं बढ़ेगा, right? So it's just that understanding when exactly to buy these type of indices / stocks would be extremely valuable. On top of this, there are a bunch of value buying opportunities, right? So value firms. Okay, so value firms का मतलब होता है, जैसे मैं आपको example दिखाता हूँ, Nike. Okay, so Nike is a great company, right? Now it has a stable business model. So it's not as if that Nike का business model is all over the place, but if you take a look, right? So for example, here's a year, right? So I mean, it has fallen by roughly 60% from its peak. It is already in a downtrend. So to summarize, there is a very interesting thing which is going on in markets in India plus the US, that you might feel that the market overall is overvalued. Okay, for example, the entire US market is overvalued, but some individual stocks are still available at very good prices. Same is in India. For example, Indian banks are available at a decent price despite the index correcting, despite small cap getting decimated, mid cap companies getting evaporated by 40-50%. Private banks में क्या हुआ, right? In the last 6-8 months, HDFC Bank has done really well. Bajaj Finance has gone up by like 20%, 25%, despite the markets falling by 15%. So what is happening is that basically now it is becoming a very stock selective game rather than just putting money blindly on the index. Index may you have to be a sensible buyer, right? And individual stocks is where money is going to be made. Okay. Final question comes that, okay, what's going to happen in the Indian market, right? Because of the US undergoing situation. Okay, so थोड़ा सा मैं आपको निफ्टी का भी बता देता हूँ. Okay, so here are Nifty 50. So it has already fallen by roughly 16% from its peak, right? I don't see like this level getting broken, right? Which is around 22,000, right? So this will be like a 17-18%, 19% fall from the peak. So this is the maximum drawdown that we are looking at least for now, because our SIP inflow is still fairly high. So this is the maximum drawdown. So at this stage, is it better to invest in Nifty 50 or Nasdaq? I'll say Nifty 50. But long term, which is a better market to invest, US stocks, okay, or Nasdaq. So yeah, so that's what I would say. I hope that this gave you some insight, some information as to how you can redesign your portfolio. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.